You know, it's crazy to think about like how much our entertainment choices have just like exploded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, remember like way back when what you watched was basically like whatever happened to be on TV.
Oh, yeah.
But that's like totally changing. And like, especially with Gen Z, it seems like they're kind of like ditching traditional Hollywood, you know, for stuff like YouTube. So today we're going to like really dig into why that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got this really interesting mix of stuff to look at, you know. There's this conversation from the YouTube channel Clownfish TV where they were talking about this Hollywood Reporter article.
Right.
And then we've also got these like super insightful findings from this digital media trend survey that just came out. Like the goal here is to really get why this whole like viewing habits thing is changing so much and like what could happen to, you know, the big studios and the online creators and like ultimately what it means for like how we experience entertainment, right?
Yeah, totally. So like, let's start with like the people who are really like leading this whole change.
Yeah.
Gen Z and millennials. The survey found that like a whopping 56% of Gen Z and 43% of millennials think content on social media is way more relevant to them than like traditional TV shows and movies.
Wow.
That's like a huge chunk of viewers, right?
Yeah.
So like what's driving that whole relevance thing?
I think it's a few things, but I think like a big part of it is like this feeling of connect, right?
Okay.
The survey also says that like half of these younger viewers feel a stronger personal connection with like social media creators than they do with like TV personalities.
Interesting.
Like think about all these like super niche communities you find on places like YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you're into something really specific, like, I don't know, speed cubing or like restoring old radios, you can find like tons of content on that. And like the traditional networks, they're trying to appeal to like everyone, so they just can't really get that specific, you know?
Right, right.
And I think that's a big part of why it feels so relevant.
That makes total sense. And, you know, one of the things the Clownfish TV guys were talking about was how, like, on YouTube, you can actually interact with the creators directly, you know? Like with super chats during live streams and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a two-way thing, even if it's just like a quick shout out or whatever.
Yeah. You definitely don't get that with like movie stars.
Exactly.
Like on a network TV show or something.
So how much do you think that like direct engagement thing adds to that feeling of connection?
That's a good question. I think it kind of shows how like fandom is changing, you know? Like these little interactions, even if they're short, they make you feel like part of a community, and it makes the creators feel more approachable, like they're more like your friends than some like big celebrity.
Right.
It's a totally different kind of relationship, one that's based on like authenticity and talking directly to each other, which is something that traditional media doesn't really do that well, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So let's like look at what's happening with traditional TV. Like the numbers for some of the big kids channels are kind of shocking. Like Disney Channel is down to something like 107,000 viewers.
What?
Disney XD is at like a tiny 18,000.
Oh, wow.
Nickelodeon's got 124,000, and Cartoon Network is supposedly around 75,000.
Wow.
I mean, when you see numbers like that, it really shows how things are changing, right?
Yeah, totally. And if you compare that to even like a medium-sized YouTuber, the difference is just crazy. Like Clownfish TV said, even a creator with a decent following can get way more views on one video than these whole networks are getting right now.
Right.
This isn't just like a little dip. It means people are choosing to spend their time somewhere else.
Yeah. And they made a really interesting point about how it's not just about like the cost of all these streaming services adding up. They think a lot of it is just like familiarity. Like younger people have basically grown up with YouTube, so those creators are the ones they know, you know.
Right, that's a great point. For older folks, there's something comfortable about watching network TV. It's like a routine. But for people who grew up with the internet, their experience with media has mostly been on platforms like YouTube.
Yeah.
That's like their go-to place for entertainment.
Totally. But here's the thing that I found really surprising. It's not just young people moving to YouTube. Get this. Viewers over 50 are actually the biggest group watching YouTube on TV screens.
Really?
It's a full 36%, which is more than teenagers and young adults put together. Did that surprise you as much as it surprised the Clownfish TV guys?
Yeah, that definitely challenges like what a lot of people think. I mean, what I've heard is that older viewers are going to YouTube more and more for news and stuff. They think it's more trustworthy or maybe less sensationalized than mainstream media, you know?
Yeah.
And there also seems to be this need for content that's just like more positive or stuff that's really specific to their hobbies and interests, which is something that traditional TV might not be doing so well.
Right. It makes you wonder, like, what YouTube has that traditional media doesn't for that age group. Is it like the huge amount of different topics? Or like the feeling that the information isn't being filtered?
I think it's probably a mix of things. Like on YouTube, you can literally find something about anything.
Oh, yeah.
And for older viewers who might have like niche interests or want to learn something really specific, that's a huge plus.
Right.
And like the Clownfish TV host said, for this age group, watching YouTube on a TV screen might just be about comfort and habit, you know? Like the screen is the same. It's just what they're choosing to watch on it.
So it seems like with all this, YouTube is kind of setting itself up to be the new Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Like with billions of hours being streamed on TVs every day, it's becoming what a lot of people turn to when they want to watch something.
Totally. YouTube isn't just for like funny cat videos and random vlogs anymore. It's really trying to be the main place where people go for entertainment. It's like going head to head with the big media company.
And that brings up a big question, especially for the creators who like built YouTube in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this worry that as YouTube gets bigger, it might start focusing more on like Hollywood stuff and paid ads, which could mean that the smaller creators get lost in the shuffle.
Right.
Is that a valid concern?
I think it is. And what's happening in the podcasting world kind of shows that. Like, as more celebrities and big media companies are getting into podcasts, it's getting harder for independent creators to get noticed, you know?
Right.
Like, the whole thing that made YouTube and independent podcasts so cool was that they were made by regular people.
But one of the hosts on Clownfish TV said something interesting about that. They said that if audiences really connect with certain creators and their content, Hollywood trying to copy that or like force their way in might not work as well as they think.
Yeah.
Because like they said, you can't just manufacture authenticity.
It's a good point. Like, remember when YouTube tried to do that whole premium content thing with YouTube Red? They had some cool shows, but it didn't really change what YouTube is all about, which is individual creators. The question is whether, like, what they do in the future, maybe with studios putting their own stuff behind paywalls on, will actually change things or not.
So let's go back to, like, where people are actually watching stuff. The survey showed that Gen Z spends way more time on social media than watching traditional TV, like around 50 minutes more every day.
Wow.
That's a lot of their day, right?
It really shows how everyone's fighting for attention online these days. Like, that extra time on social media has to come from somewhere, and the survey says it's coming from traditional TV and media. They're spending about 43 minutes less on that each day. It's like they're literally shifting their viewing habit.
And it's not just about what they're watching, it's also changing how they decide to buy things. The survey found that Gen Z and millennials actually find ads and reviews on social media more believable and influential than traditional advertising.
That's a huge change for companies and advertisers.
Yeah, it is.
It shows how powerful influencer marketing is and how much these younger people trust the creators they like. Like, a recommendation from someone they follow online means way more to them than some celebrity endorsement, you know?
Right.
So platforms like TikTok and YouTube have become like super important for advertising because of that.
So how is Hollywood reacting to all this? The guys on Clownfish TV said that Hollywood is freaking out, which, like, given how much their TV viewership is dropping, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I can see why they'd be worried. They're probably trying to figure out how to get back in control. What people on YouTube are worried about is that Hollywood might try to make deals with platforms like YouTube that are really good for them, or even try to push out independent creators somehow.
But like the problem with that is that if they try to change YouTube to be more like how Hollywood works, it could really backfire. Like they might lose the very audience they're trying to get back.
Exactly. What makes YouTube so appealing is that it's all about creators. Trying to force it to be like Hollywood could ruin that.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen YouTubers who've tried to make it in Hollywood, and it doesn't always work because they were so successful, specifically because of the online world they built. You know?
So basically, it looks like we're in the middle of this huge shift in how we consume entertainment. Gen Z and millennials are leading the way towards creator-driven content on platforms like YouTube. And what's interesting is that older audiences are starting to do the same thing.
Yeah, and it seems like the reason for this is that people want content that feels more relevant and relatable. They want to feel connected to the creators, and maybe they're not as into traditional media anymore.
And there's this like tension happening, right? Like you've got Hollywood with all its power, and then you've got this online world of creators that's way more flexible and connected to its audience.
Right.
It's really hard to say how this is all going to play out.
Yeah. And that brings us to something for you to think about. With this huge change in how we consume media, what do you think it means for the future of storytelling? How will cultural trends be different when creator-driven content is so influential? And maybe most importantly for you, what does this mean for how you find and experience information and entertainment in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question for everyone to think about. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.